Today's video is all about ResearchHub, a new economy for science. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals, such as the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what? Let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins looking for opportunity. And the question is ResearchHub an opportunity? Guys, today we're doing a deep dive. We're looking into this project with a bit of depth. Obviously, from a retail perspective, we got to make sure that the team is giving us all we need to be fundamentally bullish. We're going to be going through the website, all the documentation. We'll be talking about all the major topics regarding a project, before you make some of those critical decisions. Fundamentals are important, guys. Of course, it's not just all about price action. What is ResearchHub trying to achieve? What problems is it trying to solve? And obviously, how is it implementing a decentralized blockchain and providing that software solution? So let's begin. Let's go through this website. We're going to be using the website as our main platform to navigate. And of course, we're going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, trying to be very, very clear of all the little details behind ResearchHub, a new economy for science. We're building a new model for scientific research. We're publishing and peer review lead to funding. Interesting, because when we talk about economy, obviously we talk about currency, and they have their own currency, right? The ResearchCoin. Very important to understand that, because of course we're going to be taking that perspective. It's not necessarily that we're taking a perspective of a Web 2 application here. It's supposed to be a Web 3. In that case, we're talking about tokenization and their eternal economy using their coin, right? This is part of the major focus of the deep dive, and also the utility behind that coin. What is that coin used for? So as we can see, we always have keywords: economy and publishing and peer reviewing leading to funding. So we're talking about funding and economy. We know there's a currency here, so this is all good. So sign up, explore ResearchHub, start earning for open science today. So open science, meaning they're trying to, let's say, open source the scientific approach here, especially with regards to publishing data, research, and all that good stuff. So the decentralization and distributing that authority to the public, rather keeping it in a very centralized way, and including the ability to raise capital. Okay, this is important, guys. Let's keep on going down. Let's see what else they got here. Very clear sentence. I like the language because it does say a lot. ResearchHub powers this decentralized scientific economy. Join thousands of researchers and institutions, transforming how science gets funded, reviewed, and rewarded. I don't even think it's the funded that's as important. It's the reviewed and rewarded. Okay, this is important because I can see that a lot of what they're about is publications and being able to earn and get rewarded and contribute to an economy here, not only from a token perspective, but from a being able to produce and publish your own product, essentially. Awarded in research funding, 1.2 million, experiments funded. So they got some action happening. It's a little bit, but they got some action, right? That's very important to see that their use case is actually being used. Everything you need to advance science, okay, fund groundbreaking research. Okay, that's important because obviously researchers, the way they get funded is usually in a very centralized way from individuals that eventually want a little bit of say within what happens with the research and so on. So they're trying to decentralize that authority figure over the research and keeping the research pure, which I appreciate. Earn through peer reviewing. This is interesting to me because when you have an article that is being produced, right, you could earn by being one of those individuals that go and read it over and review it and give comments and get all involved in such a way to ensure that all these papers are valid, right? And publish with transparency, the complete ecosystem for modern scientific collaboration. So that's another thing. The collaboration aspect of things is important because ResearchHub, with its currency, is encouraging this collaboration. Right? The more you collaborate, quote unquote collaborate, because there's various ways to collaborate here on Research Hub, which we're going to touch upon. But the more you collaborate, the more you get rewarded. Okay, this is important. So let's keep on going now. Fund. There's a couple of things that we got to understand. The fund is not like necessarily a fund. It's the ability to earn funding, accelerate scientific discovery, connect research with funding opportunities, and enable philanthropists to directly support groundbreaking experiments. So it's both ways. So it's the funding, like getting individuals, giving individuals the ability to earn the funding or to get the funding, and also allowing individuals that have funds to fund projects or fund research and fund those papers and fund. So it's both ways. So when I see this, I almost see a marketplace. Because generally speaking, when we think of marketplace, we think it has to be money or currency, or, a marketplace in this case is not only funding, but also it basically connects the people that are looking for funding with the people that do have the funding. And that connection, creates that scenario where we decentralize the authority over the person that's funding, the person that is expecting the funding, right? So transparent funding allocation, tax deductible donations, direct impact tracking, and real-time progress updates. This is interesting. So give research funding and then request the funding. So you have two different things. I didn't want to get off this page right now. We'll definitely get there. Let's go back because there's two ways to do this, right? That to give the funding, and we're going to show, I'm going to get into this in a second, but also to request the funding. So cool stuff. Then you have the earn, right? Earn, get paid for peer review. Very basic, very understandable here. Somebody publishes a paper, you're able to review it, and you earn $150 in RSC per review. Get feedback from editors, choose reprints to review, build your reputation. So it's almost like a social thing. When you're talking about social collaborative environments, this way you kind of want to incentivize individuals. And what better way to incentivize individuals through the ability to earn some tokens? Very, very interesting. You can start reviewing now. Just click and you can get going on there. Publish. Champion open science. So that, again, that word open, publish in the Research Hub journal. So this is interesting because they have their own journal, right? That is supposed to be a decentralized journal. There's no main, centralized identity or control structure that is within the grasp of one individual, right? This is an open, transparent, a journal that allows people to post to or publish in. Peer review, low fees, and a commitment to open access. Only $300 APC fee, immediate preprint options. Preprint meaning before it gets published, there's the ability to get that feedback and all of that collaborative feedback that I was talking about. Open peer review process, again, something that we talked about during the earn section there, and review paid for $150 in RSC, reviewers paid. So again, if you're gonna peer review, that's your opportunity to peer review these publications. Submit a paper now, guys. This is very clear, right? You can see their internal ecosystem right here defined very clearly. Fund, earn, and publish. Very clear. And that's very good for a website where you just drop in and everything's so nice and clean. Okay, let's keep on going now. Trusted by world-class researchers. We got major universities. Now, once we get into the team, you're going to understand how some of these logos are very, reasonable. Right? Because the team ultimately is a heavyweight team. And the teams, if you have a heavyweight team, they can open many doors, including doors to Harvard, Cornell, University of California, Iowa State, and the list goes on. You can see that lots of universities. And of course, being an academic type of idea here, Research Hub, in the medical field, in the medicine, right? Interconnecting with these institutions here is actually very valid. Researchers from leading universities and research institutions worldwide trust Research Hub to accelerate their scientific discoveries and funding. This is good, right? Because definitely they're going to be one of the ones that are going to be producing a lot of product, if you think about it. A lot of papers coming out of these institutions. Let's keep on going down. Powered by ResearchCoin. This is where things get crypto, because up until now, everything has been very Web 2, right? What do we need the ResearchCoin for? And that's super important, because if you want to be an investor in the coin, you want to buy the coin, you want to hold the coin, whatever it is, you want to be a part of this ecosystem and economy, ResearchCoin has to have some utilities, have some validity for us to be able to, purchase it. The digital token that makes researchers co-owners of the scientific ecosystem. So it's not just ownership of like a particular paper or earning passive income off of paper or anything. It has nothing to do with that. Basically, here what they're saying is that with the coin, you be a part of the process. It's the system that they got going on here. Earn RSC for your contributions and use it to access powerful tools that accelerate your research. So it's like it's a process that you're getting involved in. It's not a final product or a particular infrastructure or anything like that. So let's see what it really is. I like these little graphics here because it does a great job of literally highlighting and pinpointing the necessary objectives here. So incentivizes address the root of a productability crisis. So we believe that the problems in science are downstream of the incentives. We want to reward open science and collaboration. So I love that they use the word open very often, like open source software, open source this, open source that. They want all of this to be open source. So open access proposals, peer reviews, compensation, incentivized progress updates, crowd-raised research funding. So very decentralized ways of, raising capital and peer review and all that kind of stuff. So there's an incentive here. And of course, that's the ability to earn some coin, right? Control your platform, your rules. RSC gives researchers a say in the platform. You vote on standards, rewards, mechanisms, and reputation metrics. Guys, this is backed or behind the DAO. This is important because not only are they, decentralized because they're using, a blockchain, right? It's an EVM, Ethereum based. They're on Base, obviously. We're going to talk about how Base gets intertwined. That was a tough topic to really intertwine here. We'll get into that. But, the reality is that there's many ways to decentralize a project. Right, one is using a blockchain, obviously decentralized tokenomics. How tokens are being spread throughout the different wallets and all of that. And then obviously the organization in itself, who calls the shots, right? And new projects, new teams, particularly like when we're talking about new projects and new narratives, a lot of the control stays within the top core team members, and that's kind of acceptable, right? We have to understand until tokens get distributed, we have that little bit of control. That's why this is important here, because if you're not behind the DAO, right, the reality is the control is within a centralized identity or one person or two people or core teams. And then what happens, it becomes a security. So this is where things get a little difficult, right? But where we are right here, when we're talking about, Research Hub, it is behind the DAO. However, there are some aspects regarding tokenomics that we need to discuss. And of course, we're going to get into that detail very soon. So hang tight, guys, because this is how we're going to connect their decentralization with their tokenomics, okay? Research-led governance, user-driven platform rules, decentralized control, voting rights within RSC. So 100% this is valid. However, again, the current state of Research Hub being a new project, there's things that need to be discussed, okay? So we're going to continue going forward for now, and we'll come full circle to this idea in a bit. Features, power up your research. Okay, so spend RSC on bounties for expert help, affordable publishing, research funding, premium tools that supercharge your work. So there's a lot of good things with regards to features, getting access to premium features if you're a token holder. That's one of the incentives of being a holder. And again, utility is a big part of why people want to hold the token. And here we got a couple of points here: expert consultation bounties, project funding access, affordable paper publishing, advanced research tools. These are things that are important if you're looking to become a token holder. So good stuff here, nice and clean. As I said up in the past, this is what I want to see from a website. Not too much fluff, straight to the point. Let's get to it, right? ResearchCoin live pricing. It is what it is, guys. We have been having a bit of fluctuations in the last little while. Good news, Research Hub hasn't expanded out of its range yet, so it could still be in pretty much an accumulation range. Let's keep on going down, because this is usually where we find a lot of very interesting links. Okay, so we got X, we got the Discord, we got their Git, and then we got LinkedIn. So I was able to visit all of these and kind of extract what was necessary, and we'll talk about some of those points that I was able to get here as well. Now you can see a lot of those points that we've already discussed are here. What is the notebook? What is the leaderboard? And all of that, guys. Feel free to pick around and do your thing. I'm going to do my best to stick to the main ideas here, because again, this deep dive could be 5 hours long, but I'm going to stick with, you know, the basics behind you know, the project itself, but more importantly, focus on the project as a Web3 solution. Okay, that's important. So you can see journals can be published and peer reviewed, you know, and there's guidelines, all of that, because of course we want to make sure that there's a structure or some sort of, you know, standard with all the publications that are being, you know, submitted and all that. Resources about documentation, which we're going to go through in a second. One of the best documented projects that I have seen in a while. Guys, I've done over 110 deep dives, and I'm telling you, research is top 2, top 3, maybe the best, maybe number 1 as far as documentation goes. This was a good, clear deep dive. Okay, so the foundation support, you can see lots of good stuff here, policies, and you can contact, I'm sure it's on the socials and all that good stuff. All right, let's take a look at some of the documentation. This is what I got excited about, because, and if you're on the Discord, again, there's links in the description, guys, if you want to be part of the community. You know, as I'm doing deep dives, sometimes I share a little snippets, I share a few ideas along the way. And what I did appreciate was, you know, the clarity. It's like, you know, the individuals behind whoever wrote this, you know, kudos to them, because they really understood what the retail investor is looking for when trying to conduct research. So we'll do our best not to, you know, revisit the repetition, because the website did a great job. So we're just going to highlight some of the main points and go over quickly the repetition. Welcome. What is ResearchHub? Okay, we're going to kind of, again, tool for open funding, publications, and discussion of scientific research. Guys, we kind of went through that already. I think we understood, you know, its major focus. The problem. Okay, the problem is this. The problem is that modern economy model for scientific research is old, and simplified description is as follows. Funders distribute capital to scientists who conduct the research projects and share the results as scientific papers published within an academic journal. But you can see that this is a bit of a problem, right? There's a bit of a conflict of interest per se at certain points, and there could be a choke point there. In a perfect world, funders and scientists and publishers and work together to seamlessly capitalize, you know, produce and publicize scientific research. In reality, all three groups are independent agents whose actions are influenced by their individual economic incentives. Exactly. So economics always is the incentive. Economics is always the choke point. But you can see the funders, scientists, and journals all have a focus. Now, if you can kind of like disconnect them all, which is what's really happening here with ResearchHub, I feel like that, you know, we have a fighting chance to get some true open source information without those influential individuals kind of like putting pressure on one another. Okay, so that's interesting. Research grants, incentivize. Okay, wait. So there's a lot here, guys, as to what the problem is. Okay, I'm not going to get into too much detail. Okay, please go look into it. There is a problem. Okay, so sponsoring research that aligns with their individual organizational mission. So of course, if you belong to some sort of organization and you are looking for, you know, supportive evidence, you're going to, you know, muscle your way to get that supportive evidence and basically fund that supportive evidence. And if you control any sort of media, you will be able to basically distribute that, you know, evidence at a greater scale and a lot more success. Doesn't mean that it's valuable. You get what I mean? When you decentralize that concept and remove that power, you know, dynamics, things become more valuable, right? So this is what I would suggest doing. Read through it, right? It kind of makes sense. All of it is almost self-explanatory, but it makes sense. Business model for a profit academic publishers. So academic publishers have the ability to earn instead of being squeezed. This is important, guys. It's almost like, you know, the music industry before, going independent. A lot of independent publications and so on and so forth. Being independent allows you to control your profitability as a business and so on. So this is important. And for profit is also important, guys. There's always a profitability, and the incentive is to be, to capitalize on your abilities, right, and your education and your experience and so on and so forth. So again, read through this. Now, what I really want to do is spend a little bit more time, because this also fits within the problem, the deficiencies. What I want to spend more time in is, what is Research Hub? Okay, that's more important, because if we can understand what Research Hub is in more detail, we understand what kind of problems it's trying to solve. So you can see that at the current moment, there's a couple categories: the fund, the publish, there's the notebook, the peer review, and the bounties. There's only a few here, a couple here, that we could spend more time on, because we talked about the fund. It's very clear, right? We're going to talk about the fund again. I'm going to go on the website and we'll look at this entire platform in a second. But we talked about the fund, right? The ability to connect people that are looking for funding and the people that have the funding available and want to fund. Both in this case are, founders and donors, exactly, and funding recipients. Okay, so they get into a bit of detail how this looks on their website and so on. We'll touch upon it a little bit. Publish, again, if you want to publish articles, papers, things like that, that's what you do. And then you have the notebook, something that we didn't touch on too much, but collaborate in real time on Research Hub. So it's almost a social collaborative environment where it allows users to collaboratively draft content and publish it directly within the web application. So it's almost like a document where people can log in and basically work together and get things done. Pretty interesting there. And that way, the workflow is very transparent. The author, choose the author, and you can see all the little details that you can put on that document, and then essentially publish it to Research Hub. So that's what the notebook is. And of course, all these things require, gas. Let's put it that way. They require an economy, an internal economy, which we'll talk about soon. What is the RSC token used for? Okay, very important token utility. Peer review, quite self-explanatory. We talked that already. If you do have a paper that you publish, you're going to have individuals that want a peer review. They're going to be incentivized to do that. There is, a kickback in RSC tokens, as we discussed. And then the bounties. If you are an individual that is looking for some sort of researcher to do something, by creating a bounty, you are able to financially incentivize other Research Hub users to create specific kinds of content that you're interested in. So basically hiring a researcher to do some sort of, research. Here we are, right? Self-explanatory, but cool stuff here, right? We're connecting individuals that are researchers and individuals that have an incentive to have research done and that have the capital to, deploy to get those researchers going, and vice versa. So it's an economy. It's a marketplace, guys, right? That's what I came to the conclusion. Like literally, it's like a marketplace. So reputation, this is another thing that within their eternal ecosystem, but more of a social thing, right? We see this a lot on socials, whereas, the more you contribute, the more you're involved, you get REP, right? So research, reputation type of thing. So this is good. Again, it gives you validity, gives you a ranking, makes you feel, kudos, good, makes you feel good about yourself. And basically you're part of an environment that identifies these points as valid. Okay, so good stuff there. And yeah, let's move on. Content guidelines. So okay, again, there's rules, of course. You gotta have you posting scientific questions, encourage content and prohibited content. Obviously, they need to have a standard, guys. They're part of an academia, right? They're part of an academic field, and they need to hold that standard. And this is where a bit of centralization might come in, right? But then again, decentralization is also good, because you have a social consensus that can deem something that is prohibited, and so on and so forth. You get what I mean? Almost like a Wikipedia type of thing, or social collaboration, social consensus could definitely achieve this. Guys, obviously, interesting stuff. There has to be guidelines, and they do have that there. Whenever we talk about guidelines in this space, we definitely talk about rules, right? Where that's basically what we're saying. But then on top of that, then we get to about who's going to enforce the rules. And that's where things become a little difficult, okay? Research Hub team, guys, we're going to spend a second here, because I do want to spend more time on this in a bit when we talk about the team, because you guys know I look into the team a little bit. I go on their LinkedIn and so on and so forth. But I'm just going to throw it out there, guys. This team has a lot of individuals that are very, very talented, and in many fields, right? We're talking about computer science, we're talking about health and wellness and medical and so on, right? So the reality is, though, I think a lot of us are putting a lot of weight on Brian Armstrong. And if you don't know who he is, guys, we're going to talk about him in a second, but he would be the one that is going to be smashing down doors for this project in the next little while. So, if you're bullish and you understand what Research Hub is from a fundamental perspective, great. Obviously, it is definitely offering some great, value propositions here. However, for its future success, it is very, very, nice to see that it has such a strong founder, co-founder, and CEO. And at the end of the day, that grease that he could provide could take research to a whole other level. Okay, so let's continue down here. We'll get into this in a second. So more Web3. Let's quickly get into that Web3. So we discussed its value propositions, its internal economy, essentially, right? What does it really do, and what value does it offer? Now, how do we cryptify this? How do we get into crypto here, guys, right? How do we make this? Is this a degen project altogether? Well, let's kind of see what it has here. The ticker is RSC. It is an ERC20, so it is an Ethereum EVM compatible project, and this is why it is also listed on Base. Okay, if you guys are into the Base chain, we know that it is the L1 chain that has been deployed by the Coinbase team, and of course Brian Armstrong, being the co-founder and CEO of Coinbase, does make things a little interesting. Okay, so remember, we just talked about this is very, very interesting from that fact, okay, and from other facts as well. We'll definitely touch upon those facts also. So we got a total supply of many tokens, 1 billion tokens. Okay, that's not a big deal, right? Because we have to understand that it could be a big project, and if they have burns and so on, those can come down, and nonetheless, don't get fooled by the supply, because it doesn't really matter, right? Initial circulating supply 7.5 million, getting the wheels going. Maximum rate at which the community circulating supply will increase by 50 million. That's, I think, 5% per year. Capped at 5% per year. So what they're trying to do is reduce the dilution on those tokens. Okay, again, what I mentioned here earlier was that this documentation is probably the most clear and the most concise documentation that I've seen. Up until now, everything that we've covered was an easy read, very clear and very understandable, including now where we are talking about a bit about these tokenomics. You have the smart contract address right there ready to go. Okay, so that's one thing that I like to see. A lot of papers don't have these things. So ResearchCoin on Base, as I mentioned, there's a bridge to go on Base, contract address for the Base. Amazing, good stuff there, transparent. Why include a token? So what is the utility? What's the purpose? Right, so there has to be a purpose, or else it will just be a Web2 project. It's not. Incentivize content creators with RSC bounties. Tip the content they find valuable by supporting with RSC, and vote on key decisions for the community as the DAO, and it is governed by a DAO. So can RSC be converted to USD? Obviously can. You find an exchange that has it, Coinbase and Gate right now, one of the major ones that have it. So, and you can go on DeFi, obviously on a DEX, Aerodrome, and Uniswap have that readily available also. Okay, just keep in mind that gas fees apply if you're going to be swapping on native Ethereum. Okay, so let's move on from there. Earning RSC, again, part of the utility. It is part of the utility, because you're going to see that ultimately earning is part of the utility. What could you do with it? You could earn from it or earn through it, right? So submit proposals to receive funding, commenting and, discussing scientific research, peer reviewing, and receiving tips and developing open source features. Okay, so maybe as a dev, you can get in here and start making some features. I don't know exactly what they mean by that, but overall, there's capabilities to earn and get in and being a part of the community. Good stuff. Now, a bit more on tokenomics. This is where I want to spend a little bit more time here, guys, because there is a bit of an issue. Now, again, it's tough to talk about this because it is an interesting project. Value proposition is there. The website is awesome from a communication perspective. Documentation is clear and transparent. They're doing their thing to keep everything very transparent. And again, the team is a heavyweight. We're going to definitely talk about that more. But what is really happening here is that the tokenomics leave a little bit of criticism. Now, I wish I could zoom in more on this, and unfortunately, I can't. Maybe I could download this, copy image, open this a new tab. Maybe let's see if I can get into this a little bit deeper. Okay, improved a little bit. Let's see. A little bit. Okay, it's not too bad. So you can see that you got a community, which is about 600 million that goes for of the total 1 billion. This is the plan to distribute it to the foundation and to the research hub. And you can see that down here, it branches off even further, right? We got the foundation and so on, and then to be distributed 2.5 research per quarter. And then this goes to the research hub per year. And the research hub is on this side. So some of this goes on this side little by little, and so on and so forth. What we see is the Research Hub Inc. Okay, this is important because it's a separate kind of identity, right? And then the Research Hub, which is the founders and the new employees that are coming in. Okay, this is important because what they're realizing is that people that are coming in eventually want to have a bit of an allocation, which is already telling you that they have intention to expand this project. Okay, which is also a benefit, a positive, because they're going to have the grease to expand going forward with regards to personnel, which tells you that they have plans for future. Okay, so roadmap, kind of. Okay, so you can see those topics right here: Research Hub Inc., vested schedule, founders, vested schedule, new employees, vested schedule. This is all at Genesis Supply, and they will be getting some through the vested schedule over time. So there is dilution, but it is going to be very, very systematic, and it's going to be done slow and steadily. Okay, this is important. Now, as you go down, you can see that there's the ETH and the Treasury Foundation does hold research and ETH and this and that, and you're going to see a little bit of money flow coming through this, and Uniswap, which is one of the dexes and so on, and the bounties and all of this. This is all the way the capital is going to flow throughout its ecosystem. Okay, so cool stuff. But this is what interests me most. Let me go back. Let me see my best if I can get back to where we were really quickly and easily. Okay, so that's that. Now, if we go back and we look at the distribution chart, you can see the new employees, the founders, the team, and the community. Now, at a TGE, a bunch of tokens were released. Now, the question is, out of those bunch of tokens, where did they go? Given that this project is fairly new, right? Fairly new. And they have a plan that, of a time span of 12 years in order for this chart to eventually be achieved, to have the full dilution, to have the full distribution, okay? And again, this is highlighted nicely right here, 5% for the community, bit by bit, 20% retained by Research Hub Technologies, so 20%, and 10% retained by Research Hub founders, okay, and 10 for the employees and the future employees and so on, right? So you can see that there's a lot happening here with tokens for the early part of the stage that are going to be allocated to the core development team. There's a lot here, guys, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit more because they are kind enough to give us a lot of transparency so we can critique them the right way. And I think what they're really saying is here by doing this is saying, look, we're going to be honest and open. Maybe we know that tokenomics are rough right now, but that's very typical of a new project. We know this, guys. If you've been around in this space, you know that new projects have tough tokenomics because, again, their tokens are not in distribution and they need to do that over time slowly, right? Not just dump on the market. So in the meantime, who's going to hold the majority of the tokens? Well, the founding team and the foundation and all of this, they need to have that runway to get Research Hub off the floor. That's the truth. Eventually, little by little, as we see the economics flourish and over time we see distribution, we will see the community hold the majority of tokens. The difference is that between now and then is that now we're a lot more centralized allocation, and later on we're going to be a lot more of a decentralized allocation. And what happens then is that maybe the token value will be much higher. right? So that's what you got to consider, is that where do we put our current trust in, right? If the founders and the team and again the Research Hub Technologies Inc. hold a lot of the tokens, guys, we have to put our faith somewhere. Unfortunately, this is almost a faith-based system in this current state, right? So let's quickly go down. I think that we can discuss this for a second. They had I'm going to show you that. So here you have the emissions. You can see little by little, 5%. You have Research Hub, 20%, not liquid. Any future liquidity will be communicated transparently, okay, which is nice. Your employees, 48-month linear, so slow and steady. For 48 months. Founders, variable, 48 months. Cliff, or 96-month linear. So you can see that, they have their vesting schedule nice and transparent and all that good stuff. But as we go to the contract addresses, this is where things like, kind of like a little vague, okay, just a little vague, but not big time. I just want to go back here for 1 second, just see if I can highlight some of the terminology here that they got going on. Let's see, 12-year token, which occurred, okay, has been allocated 60 months of supply, okay, the community, okay, so everything's nice and clear. Now, if we go to Etherscan and we start looking at the top holders, okay, I just want you to see something. Okay, so we have Treasury, and we have the base bridge. Okay, that's fine. And what I want to focus is on these two treasuries. If you go look at it and you look at the contract address here, okay, the tail end is 91F1. Okay, and if we go back to this and we start looking at the contract addresses and we start looking at what this is that one, the foundation. Okay, but then I want to ask you this. This is, what is the difference between this foundation and this foundation community? So this foundation, which is Treasury 1, these tokens belong, and if you look at them, there's quite a bit of them, guys. Like I'm saying, it's 48% of the tokens at their current state belong to this wallet. And where does this belong to? Guys, this is currently, according to what their documentation is saying, this right here, this foundation belongs to this allocation right here, which is part of the community, no doubt, right? But it is part of the Inc., the Research Hub Inc., which is a centralized identity. Okay, so this is a little bit where things could be a little bit better. Look, Research Hub Inc., 20%, futures liquidity commercial communicated transparently. This right here is in the foundation wallet right now. And they hold 20% of the tokens, all right? And that's quite a bit at TGE. You can see, according to the current distribution, the current circulating supply, they hold a lot, guys, because these are not issued yet. Very few are issued, right? So there is a foundational allocation here, but these are the ones that are currently right now being in distribution quite a bit. They have a lot of control over the DAO at the current moment. And this is something that we got to understand, and new projects do have this scenario. So let's go back a second. Then we look at the second one. You can see the tail end of the address, of the wallet address, is BE0. Okay, so if we go right here, and we go back to their contract addresses, right here, the team, right, BE0, right, another heavyweight wallet. Let's go see what they got going on here, 30%. So that's quite a bit. Now, if you go back again and we compare, now you have foundation community, which again, let me go back to the chart here that they got our schedule, which belongs in here. Fine, the foundation is going to hold some community tokens in order to, process through the DAO and vote on certain initiatives and eventually distribute to the community, you and I type of thing, no doubt. But the other foundation, wallet, which is this one right here, seems to be part of the foundation, which is in full control of the team. Again, guys, this is where a little bit of more transparency might be great, but I think I was able to deduce exactly what's happening here. Okay, so just be very clear. So let's just quickly recap. If you go back here, you can see that they very clearly tell you what's going on from a big picture as far as a internal ecosystem workflow or flow, right? Then you go here and you kind of see what's going on here. 1 billion tokens. Tokens may be distributed over time span of 12 years. Cool. Eventually, it's going to look like this. Right now, these are not in distribution, right? Not a lot of them, which means that a lot of these, the ones that got issued sooner, are these guys right here, which is, again, 20%, to the right here. Where is it? 5%. Okay, this is another a few little details on how they're going to recycle some of this capital from different, from the foundation, 1 per year, 5% yearly community emissions. So some of it's going to go to the community, which is all good. These are all cool little details. But again, this is what starts to, the Research Hub Inc., although they are not liquid at the current moment, they still have a lot of control over the way the DAO operates. Okay, this is something we got to understand, guys. It is what it is. Okay. As the tokens in the community get distributed, and some of these potentially, get distributed out into the community, because that happens, will decentralize the authority of the DAO. At the current moment, that's the way it is. So just go through this. It was good that they have these. At least we could, be very, very transparent about things. What is the Research Hub Foundation? Again, you can see the Research Hub community operates under the Research Hub Foundation. Okay, name and functions like decentralized autonomous organizations, a DAO. This means that the community operates in a centralized manner with token holders and ResearchCoin voting and proposals for various topics. But at the current moment, the foundation, holds all the tokens, or the majority of them. So you can see that that's a little bit of a problem in that sense. What else do we got here? Programs, initiatives, enroll. Okay, peer review program. This right here, you can see that we have the Research Hub Foundation team. So it's a separate identity, separate team right here that handles the foundation, the decentralized aspect of the organization. Additional information about Research Hub Foundation team can be found here, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of transparency here, no doubt. So again, if you want to know more, here it is. They do a lot here with regards to, keeping the organization running for the people. And that way, it's a bit decentralized. Over time, as I mentioned, it will definitely become more decentralized. Okay, so let's move on. That's that. And this is the foundation website. Accelerating science for global progress, a better way for founding, publishing, review, and research, fund, publish, review. So they're just reiterating some of the fine details behind what they are offering, and just, backing the fact that the DAO is going to decentralize the authority of the organization itself. And again, we're waiting for those tokenomics to improve over time. Okay, so that's that. And I showed you this. This is that. As you can see, let me just quickly show you how it looks on a chart form, because it does definitely change our viewpoints. Verifying that I'm human, I would like to think so, but maybe not. Let's see. There we go. Look, the Treasury Hub, Research Hub Treasury, that's a bunch. That's a bunch. Okay, now one could argue, okay, a lot of are locked up and this and that, and they're not liquid. I get it, but doesn't matter. Right now that concentration means authority. Okay, so let's move on. Now, if you start looking at the team, now you gotta sit back and say to yourself, okay, now there's a little bit of centralization with regards to how the DAO works. So welcome to the club, welcome to crypto. That's how it is at the beginning. I said this a couple of times. But if there's anybody out there that you want to be bullish on, and think that is things are going to be done properly, not only because so far we really didn't have any reason to not trust the team, or maybe we don't have, or maybe the reality is that this individual, Brian Armstrong particularly, can't really fumble, because reputation is on the line, and given that he is the spearheading this industry in a big way, he can't afford to fumble. So he's going to do things properly. He's going to do things right, even from a legal perspective, guys. He doesn't want to fumble this. This is not a healthy thing to fumble, right? Being the founder and CEO, co-CEO of Research Hub and Coinbase, and leading the blockchain base chain the way he is, ultimately it is a scenario where he's on the hot seat. He's got to make sure that Research Hub runs squeaky clean, right? He doesn't want any heat that way. So from that perspective, you got to say to yourself, if there's anybody out there that is going to have to run and should run this project properly, it's got to be Brian. Now we cannot trust anybody. We know that this is not a faith-based system. Crypto, blockchain, decentralization is not a faith-based system. We shouldn't rely on one individual. And I would like to say that eventually we could feel that way with Research Hub. But at the moment, based on tokenomics and the way that, the DAO is structured and the token allocation is structured, we have no choice but to kind of like, quote unquote, trust the core team until complete decentralization happens or, distribution happens. So this is where we are, guys. Brian Armstrong, we got Patrick, we got a couple others here, Tyler, Kobe. Let's talk about these guys a little bit. I went on their LinkedIn and I was, looking around. I'm sure that there's a lot more members that are not listed. A lot of them United States, California, New York, and so on. Lots of champions here. PhD in biomedicine, accelerating open source future. I'm just looking at some of these titles, okay? Project manager at Research Hub, no title, no info, okay, that's fine. Passionate photographer, cool. That's that we always need a photographer in the family, right? Research, a scholar, and so on. Scientists, okay, oncology, medical science consultant, international medical graduate, PhD. Guys, the list goes on. You want me to show you more? There's more and more and more and more and more. And this is the dude we're going to talk about, him, PhD at Purdue University, chief of staff at Research Hub, more and more. There's a lot, right? Lots of engineering in science. This is one of the core engineers, the founding engineers, psychologists, this and that. So there's a lot happening here, guys. Lots of talent from a medical and even from an engineering perspective. Let's quickly move on. Co-founder at Research Hub. Now, I'm going to just premise this, that there's a lot of youth here, not only with regards to career, but perhaps even age. What I'm saying here is that really, if you look at this dude's background, he comes out of university, Georgetown School of Medicine, and he becomes a co-founder and CEO of Research Hub. What could we say here? Okay, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's a talented, educated, individual with great work ethic, and he's got a lot of, steam ready to go. He's young and ambitious. Okay, great, awesome. But from a track record perspective, there's nothing there really. Okay, so we got to be honest about it. Now, youth is great. Fresh ideas are awesome. But again, track record kind of gives you a trend. Gives you some data, back testing or some historical information to assume that, the trend is going to be your friend type of thing, right? It's the same concept here. So all we really have is a well-educated individual that probably has all the energy in the world to make this thing happen. Other than that, we got to move on. Okay, so good stuff. Okay, Tyler, another dude, chief of staff at Research Hub, PhD, Purdue University, biomedical engineering. There's no doubt in my mind that those two individuals are not smart. They are educated, they are talented, they are brilliant, obviously, but very similar in the same context is that went from university, doctoral, research assistant, graduate assistant. You can see that from 2020 onwards to 2023, a professional student, and then neuroscience editor and community lead, part-time, right into here, and then bang, chief of staff, right? Research Hub full-time. That's a big step. That's a huge step. But then again, it's similar to the other dude. What do we say? Maybe coming in full force, full steam ahead, lots of energy, lots of youth, fresh ideas, and ready to go. Could be the case. But again, no historical data to give us that idea of what has been done and achieved from a professional perspective. Again, not trying to, damper his capabilities, just trying to say what it is what it is. Okay, so let's move on. Then we got this individual. I was looking at his experience. Let's go back a second so we can see the first page here. He loves building products. Great products. Now, we got to understand this is a little different, whereas he's got a bit of a background, director of engineering at Sotheby's, which is a distributor of, art and fine products and things like that. You can see he's got a background here in software engineering and so on. So there is, Stevens Institute of Technology, computer science. Okay, so this is an engineer. This is a computer programmer that was on board at the early stage of this product of Research Hub. Good stuff. Okay, talent from an engineering perspective. Just keep in mind, these are only the individuals that I found here that I'm highlighting, and the ones that are more mainstream with regards to the team. Okay, there are so many more. Okay, I'm not trying to, again, hide those individuals, but we went through them at the beginning. Lots of engineering and medical experience peppered throughout this project. Okay, now last but not least, the heavyweight himself. Again, let's talk about this dude. Number one, what I don't appreciate, I'm going to start it off quick, is that he's not on the official LinkedIn of Research Hub. He's not listed here, which bothers me. Right? He should be. He would be nice. It would be nice. You got to admit, because it gives it a little bit more validity. That social consensus, that whole transparency. Is he the founder, co-founder, CEO of Research Hub? I want to see his face right here. That would be awesome, obviously. Going forward, if you keep on scrolling down, you see that he co-founder of New Limit, which I want to talk about in a second, CEO and co-founder of Coinbase, okay, which, again, beautiful. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that if you go here on the main website of Research Hub and you go to terms, no, where is it? About, I think it's at the about. Is it the about? Somewhere around here, you're able to see what he's about, what he does. By the way, guys, this is their main interface. Really good stuff. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Now, if we go into continue going down, technical product manager at Airbnb. Okay, honestly, we don't need to go any further. What you need to do is focus on this. Right, he is the CEO and co-founder of Coinbase, one of the largest, the top 2 largest exchanges in the world. Okay, so very, very bullish, very necessary, opens tons of doors for this project into this space, being listed on Coinbase, having all the runway and infrastructure for base as well, and everything you need to make this succeed. Education, computer science, economics. Okay, it is what it is. Guys, the guy's loaded. He's good from that perspective, and that's about it. And I don't think we need more. Now, he's a programmer through and through, but what I think is what I'm seeing here is that he's showing a little bit of interest in health. Okay, let's just open this a second. Let me see. Open this a new tab, and this could bring a little bit of value to Research Hub. So you can see this is top of his list on LinkedIn. New Limit is a biotechnology company working to extend human health span by developing different therapies and so on. I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce that. You get what I mean? So ultimately, he can see his interest is in this avenue, which tells me that maybe Research Hub has a little bit more strength than we would even be perceiving if we didn't know this. So maybe he's going to be pushing this aspect. Maybe there's going to be some sort of integration here or something like that. So interesting stuff. I appreciate this. I'm hoping that we see some great things come out of, Brian Armstrong, that it's just not a name that is added. And you can see New Limit and all this. This is an interesting, progression for this hot new narrative, which is DeSci. Okay. And to see an individual like this spearheading it, is awesome. Okay, good stuff. Now, what exactly is it? Let's quickly go to their website. I should have done this earlier, but all good. We go with the flow here. This is the main Research Hub website. Well designed. Okay, this is the website. If we can get into, let's just quickly go here. So this is their main thing. You can see this is the homepage, right, of their main hub, and you can see what's trending. These are different publications. You can upvoting and comments, and you can see ResearchCoin earned opportunity. This content includes a bounty, complete tasks to earn $151. Guys, this is what I'm talking about. So this is a homepage where you get all the trending latest posts and latest publications and latest interactions of a community. You can see Tyler's the top funder right now. He's definitely pouring a bit of capital in here to show some action. So we know that this is, let's say, a very centralized scenario. Okay, let's just throw it out there. It is what it is. Okay, and then as we keep on going down, we know we have some other, things to look at, follow recommendations. Okay, very social, very social. And then the earning capabilities, you can see there's bounties on different things, papers. And this is a paper regarding biology. This one is a computer science paper. Very, very interesting. Right up my alley. So the pretty cool stuff there. And then there's, a fund if you want to get funded. And there's two scenarios here: requests for proposals, or previously funded proposals, so you can see the success of some other ones, and judge and use previous scenarios to see what this is all about. As you can see, energy healing, brain hyper scanning, holy fibromyalgia, all tons happening here, guys. Mouthfuls here. If you're not a medical expert, it could be a little bit difficult, but that's not what this is about. We shouldn't have to be medical experts to understand the value proposition off of this project or any crypto project. At the end of the day, it's all about what is the utility of the coin. And you can see here is that you can provide capital to fund these initiatives. And that's where you're going to get a bit of a reward. So there's a proposal right now. What's happening here? Let's see. A new kind of science organization. This is one that is currently circulating on socials. There's 3 days left for the funding. They're looking for 37,000. You can see that they're, well into it, doing their thing. There's a few contributors here, and so on and so forth. You can get a few details of what's going on. A new kind of science organization. How can DeSci DAOs better align incentives for fundraising? Okay, so again, this is a hot topic, DeSci and the DeSci DAOs. Now, the DeSci DAOs, you know that lately we had projects like Bio doing very well, which is a launch pad for DeSci DAOs, which we're going to talk about also. I'm not going to try to integrate, Bio too much into here, but there's a good relationship right now with ResearchHub and Bio. And it's very good to see, because ultimately they kind of intertwine. They're right now one of the leaders, some top 2 leaders in the DeSci space. So it's good to see that collaborative or that relationship building right there. So good stuff. And request for proposals. You can see that, request for proposal, expanding consciousness, and whatever that is. Endogenous, DMT. Next level stuff here for a regular degen, obviously. But like I said, we shouldn't have to be doctors and scientists to truly understand whether we want to, deploy into ResearchCoin. Okay, so good stuff. And then there's the journal, their in-house journal, RH Journal, the Research Hub Journal. If you want to be published there, you have an opportunity, right? You can submit your manuscript, and there's a peer review, process and so on. The notebook, that collaborative thing that we were talking about. It's an open source. We are an open source platform that enables discussion, peer reviews, and publications, and more. Obviously, you got to sign in. I'm not doing that, but you get my point. And then there's a little bit of a leaderboard to see who are the top earners. Look at this, $1,500 earned. Great stuff from this PhD in biochemistry in Moscow State University. This is proof of concept, guys. This is it. This is what we're seeing. An active community full of PhD people and biometrics and doctors. I see lab coats everywhere, and that's great to see because there's actual utility and use case. Okay, so awesome stuff. Now that we can see that the website is well established, it's clean, the main page is great, documentation is great, we can really start slowly shifting and transitioning to talk about their socials. And I feel like this project is definitely flying under the radar, given the fact that, currently there's nothing really sparking on the social media side of things, unfortunately. Now, I did visit their Discord. They don't have a Telegram. I did visit their Discord. It's a little quiet in there, which is normal for such a small project. Market cap-wise, just a refresher, we're talking about a small market cap, $57 million market cap. It's a baby cap. It hasn't really done anything yet, so we're really trying to get her in early and trying to find its value proposition so we can align ourselves accordingly. But I think there could be a little bit more effort from a social perspective. Now, I do see that they abandoned their Medium page, and you can see they actually made a statement somewhere where, here it is, right in front of my face. The Research Hub blog has moved. Look for us on researchhub.com I clicked it and it doesn't work. So it's like, okay, we go here, and then we go somewhere here, Research Hub. Okay, right here, this is supposed to be their thing. 404 page not found. No, thank you. That's not a good thing. Okay, so what's happening here? The issue is that they don't have a roadmap. Okay, now let me just back it up a little bit here, because a roadmap is not necessary all the time, but it is something that does really bring value, especially in a new project. We want to know where they're going with things, not only from an economic perspective, but also from a human capital perspective. What efforts are they where are they putting their effort? Now, when you're behind the DAO, things get difficult because behind the DAO means that the community dictates what happens next. And that way, things take a little longer. Things are a little less transparent until they're actually solidified and voted upon and, tallied up and all of that. And then who takes the ownership of making those things public? Is it posting it on socials enough? Or is a blog necessary? And my opinion is this. I've seen after 100 plus deep dives, I've seen projects not have roadmaps, but use a blog, even a medium blog, so effectively that it can kind of replace a roadmap. It's all about communication, guys. So if you don't have a roadmap and you don't have a blog, what are we relying on? We're relying on X. And to tell you the truth, X is not an effective way to document properly such things, especially if you're expecting individuals to feel comfortable with their next steps. Now, next steps are great. Like, they're putting their money where their mouth is. They are, putting it to work. ResearchHub just got an upgrade to V2. It's live April 23rd, which is great. We had all summer long to enjoy this news, but what's next? You get my point. What's next? That for me is a big thing. I want to know if there is a next step, and what is the next step will determine how much capital I deploy, right? And of course, that's how it works, guys. What's cooking now? Do I have to go on their Discord? Do I have to really dig that much? Well, communications is important. Now, as we scroll down on the Research Hub page, there's a lot of reposts from other individuals. You can see this is trending right now. Scott Explorers Base.eth is all up in here. Obviously, he's posting up a storm here, and we got a couple others. Posting up a storm, reposting different things. Basic Science creates the biggest breakthroughs. This is one of the current projects there on Research Hub that is trending at the current moment to get all over. You can see budget covers full-time research, experts, consultants, all kinds. Click the link to support the research. How DeSci DAOs can advance fundamental science. This is one of the things right now that is trying to be funded on Research Hub, which is cool. And that's about it. And you can see September 2nd, Research Hub. Get your unique link. All kinds of different things and different scientific publications regarding how the things that they're currently posting on Research Hub. Good stuff, but like, where's the buzz? Where's the buzz? I did like a couple things just to support, of course, but not enough action. 6 likes, 3 likes, 4 likes, guys. You got to get something happening. I know it could be dry. Some of these topics could be dry, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a scientist myself, but to be from a medical perspective, but there is a scenario where these topics need a little bit of buzz. They need a little bit of shininess, and it's hard to generate. So it's definitely a challenge. So what can I say here? The project is interesting. The project should have some good opportunities in the near future. Guys, align yourself accordingly. And as per usual, guys, I do release an infographic highlighting a lot of the key details. Let's get right into that. As you can see, ResearchCoin looking pretty good. Okay, so it's small market cap, just to get into the context here. Excuse some of this detail because I couldn't keep up with the price action. Lots of volatility over the weekend and such, but still right around $59 million market cap, 49 cents price, more or less, depending on the minute that you're looking at. Trading volume, very low trading volume. It's only listed on a Coinbase and Gate, and there's not much volume happening. Now, it doesn't mean that there's no liquidity, because I'm sure Base could, provide that, Coinbase. But my biggest issue is the social. The reason why I don't think it's catching any bids is because of the social. I don't even think people know exactly what research is and who's behind it. It could be the case. It could be flying completely under the radar right now. Based on volume, transactional volume, it could be the case, right? So right now, supply, only 12% is in circulation. Of that $120 million, 20 million supply, how much of that is currently held by the core, right? That's what I want, not the community. Okay, how much is that? We're going to talk about that in the section in a second. Max 1 billion, fully diluted. You can see that there's a lot of tokens that still need to be issued, guys. There's no point talking there. Okay, so let's quickly look over some of the key aspects here. By the way, guys, I'm going to put this all over the socials. Feel free to check that out. I'm going to have it on Discord, X, everywhere. So give yourself a moment to download it. You can zoom in on this sucker because it's definitely high quality. So you can, read all the little fine details here. Ecosystem, funder, funding, marketplace, publication, notebook, peer reviews, bounties. Guys, we talked about this. This is it. Their internal ecosystem, for me, is the most important. Now, I know somebody out there is going to say, but Mike, what about Base? Isn't that part of the ecosystem? Yes, it is. But I would say it's a part of their external ecosystem, because internal ecosystem means what the actual project has to offer for its users, because it directly impacts utility, right? Whereas an external ecosystem, like being on another L1 or being on another chain or whatever the case is not really impacting its utility. It's impacting its, liquidity perhaps, or its ability to be cross-chain and less friction for use case and many other value. But right now, I felt like I needed to just focus on its internal ecosystem because it's 10 out of 10, and not only that, it impacts its utility. Because of those features in its ecosystem, the utility is top-notch. Earn, tip, spend, RSC. Okay, that's basically governance, DAO, platform privileges, spot on. So we can see that there's a token that has an ecosystem with lots of use cases, and you can see that it's clearly that the token has a purpose. So 10 out of 10 for both categories. Unfortunately, guys, no roadmap. What can we do? I couldn't find one. If there is one, lingering on the internet, you know how the way the internet is. If there is one on the net that I haven't found, and please, reach out, put a link in the description, do your thing, because really roadmaps are cool. Official documentation like that is cool. X is the best place to keep up to date per se, but not even, because you notice there's not really that much happening there, even on X. Guys, they need a little bit more marketing. Unfortunately, that's the truth. Team, guys, 10 out of 10. What can I say? CEO, co-founder of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong. I started off there because I think that's the biggest reason why we can exclude or ignore maybe not having a roadmap. Or maybe ignore also that the tokenomics are a little flawed, which we'll round up in a second, right? These are all very valid reasons, because we have Brian Armstrong, which is the co-founder of Coinbase. And do you think this dude's going to put his reputation and name on the line for a small project like ResearchHub? If anything, it's a benefit. If anything, he's going to bring value. Core team has tons of education in medicine and engineering and all of that. Founding engineer has strong background in software engineering and all good stuff. So 10 out of 10 for the team. And the youth is there, and all that power should be there, led by Brian Armstrong. Okay, he's going to open the doors. He's going to provide the grease that's necessary to get this thing going, in my opinion, again. So very, very important to consider. Social, it's tough. It's tough because they're not getting much action there. They do have 43,000 followers. Could be use better engagement. Discord, but no Telegram. Docs team on LinkedIn. However, Brian is not posted there as a founder or a team member. That bothers me. Okay, and in addition, maybe being a little bit more public about it could cause a little bit more awareness of the leadership. Now, maybe it's strategic. Maybe it's strategic. He doesn't want to cause that FOMO. He doesn't want to, pump and, cause all that crazy price action. Maybe it's the case. I don't even know if the majority of this space knows that this is the case. So we got to, take it step by step. Right now, from a social perspective, they need a bit of work, guys. It's very clear. Tokenomics, it's all about the distribution. It's not even about an use case or anything. It's all about team and treasury hold 80% of the circulating supply at the current moment. That's a lot. And then we start to say is like, okay, what happens to decentralization in this case? Well, the reality is that, from a voting perspective, from a DAO perspective, the community doesn't have much to say. So community token emission will be capped at 5% per year. So eventually they're going to get a little bit of their action. But for now, it's very centralized. And that's one of the criticisms that I could come up with right now. New employees and founders are behind the vesting schedule, which means further tokens that are going to be issued to the teams and employees and founders are going to be distributed slow and steadily. But the current ones, the ones that they currently hold, how does that affect the DAO? That is the major concern. Obviously, I can come to some conclusions, not with 100-degree certainty, but the conclusions that I'm pulling from are directly from the data that is provided by the team themselves and Etherscan. So it is what it is, guys. But at the end of the day, don't get fooled. A lot of projects have very similar scenarios with regards to tokenomics from TGE until maturity, right? That's the problem. Okay, we got to really understand that. You can't really hold it against them too much because they're new. Relationships. So there's a relationship with a project called Endowment, enabling donation-based scientific funding, infrastructure expansion integrated with Base L2, many collaborations with bio DAOs. Okay, so if you look at their timeline, a lot of what they talk about is integration with Base, which is great. A L2 that is a decentralized open source blockchain. Good stuff there. That's what we kind of want to see. Going on from that, we have Bio, which is a DAO deployer, which is a launchpad for DAOs. And we already seen that integration about DAOs. And if you can see some of the partnerships or collaborations on X with some of the DAOs, that's great to see that relationship, because we know that Bio also has a really strong stance in the DeSci narrative, a very young narrative, and being one of the market leaders in that narrative. And in addition, has strong ties with CZ from Binance. So we're talking about two heavyweights within the industry that could be indirectly perhaps collaborating at this point, or even in the future, which, guys, what can we say? If there's people that are going to open the doors to projects and to, funding and VCs and capital, the reality is you have to decide which side on the fence are you on. Are you going to be running where the money's at, or when the money's coming in with the money makers, or are you going to just be watching and standing by? That's the problem. We don't like VCs, I get it, but they're the one that's going to bring the capital. And right now we know that these heavyweights can bring a lot of capital, a lot of interest real quick. Exchanges, we got Coinbase, Gate, CoinEx, Aerodrome, and more smaller ones, and perhaps more to come in the future. There's no doubt in my mind that eventually we'll see them listed on Binance and so on, especially Binance, because again, CZ being a big proponent about DeSci, a big believer in DeSci, should eventually list this project on their. I know they're competitors and sometimes they choose to stay exclusive, but sometimes it is what it is. When you have those joint ventures, it's great for both parties to participate and have that relationship. So good stuff there. Now let's just summarize the verdict before we get into some of the price action. Look, from a overall perspective, we got to be real about what's happening here in this space. We're coming up with software solutions that, sometimes, have value. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just pure speculation. And the verdict here for me is it's DeSci. It's all about the DeSci, right? You got to be really clear on the fact that DeSci is a hot new narrative. It is a new narrative. Forget about it being hot. Maybe it's not hot. The reality is it's new. Okay. And the reality is it's still speculative. Now, as a speculative investor, you got to ask yourself, am I willing to take some chance, some risk into a speculative technology? Am I willing to, take some of my capital and take a shot? Well, the reality is up until now, so far so good. We've been seeing a lot of the DeSci space wake up, which is awesome. And based on its value proposition, I could see, and maybe you can too, that some capital out of the total market cap of this space can be attracted by the DeSci narrative. Now, we know that also we are trying to have a nice decentralized scenario. There is a DAO for ResearchHub. It is EVM, so it's written on a public blockchain and so on. And obviously, we want to, as maturity, flourishes, we want to get into a better state with regards to tokenomics. So early stages of crypto projects in a new narrative, foundation tokens are behind the DAO, which is good. Some of the foundation tokens that are community based, right? Not the ones that are behind ResearchHub technologies, because they receive 20% of the total RCS supply held in the company's treasury. So based on that, if you think about it, 20%, they hold a lot of tokens at early stages, which means they got a large voice in the DAO at the current moment. Tokenomics are representative of new projects that have a centralized distribution. As tokens distribute, decentralization will be achieved. Eventually, it will happen. Just it's not right now. And this is common within this space. Blog is no longer active, which is is a possible replacement for a roadmap, but it's not there. So, and with no roadmap, the communication is going to suffer, even though their documentation, I just got to be clear, their documentation is one of the best that I've seen. After over 110 deep dives that I've covered over the last couple of years, the reality is that I've never seen documentation so transparent, so clean, and so easy to understand before. So that's a good thing. Obviously, there's some tad improvements, especially with the definition of what ResearchHub Technologies Inc. is, and their holdings, and the wallet, and the fund, and all this, the treasury. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They have a lot. They have a lot to offer here with transparency, so that's good. Research RSC with the market cap of Bio. And of course, the only reason why I chose Bio is because it's the other project within the narrative that is currently doing very well. Okay, and if they can keep up, and if they can keep on collaborating and piggybanking off of one another, and keeping the spark going together, I think that they could definitely do well. Now, research could catch up to Bio. Bio could keep on moving as research keeps on moving up. This is not the point. The point is that as the total market cap rises, the bigger and more important question is how much capital could DeSci attract out of this new fresh capital coming in as the total market cap climbs from 4 trillion, let's say, to 10. Again, I don't know where it's going to go, but let's say to 10 billion. How much of that capital could ResearchCoin attract? And if you feel that it could outpace Bio, maybe it could flip Bio. Who knows? It could be possible. Maybe Bio is going to keep up with its current attraction, and research is going to keep up with its current attraction, and both Bio and research are going to run up together. Fine. But let's just use it as a little bit of a standard here. If research would keep just catch up to Bio's current market cap, we're at a 5x. That for me, and Bio is only at a more or less at a $200 million market cap. It's still small. It's not big. So the truth is that we can have a lot of upside potential because the narrative is young, and these projects are super young. I can see research hitting $5. It's very possible. A 10x, why not? It's very possible. That would take it to $500 million market cap. That's nothing, guys. It's nothing. It's still small. So what do we do here? And for a bull run, top of the bull run, $500 million market cap, that's still nothing. So that's, in my opinion, that's still very modest, given that it is, from a risk to reward ratio opportunity, research, Bio, DeSci, it is good. It is very, very interesting. So I give this project an 8 out of 10, not because as a crypto project, and not because it doesn't have great fundamentals, guys, because we got to be clear. Just from the team perspective, utility and ecosystem, I felt compelled to give it 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. The problem is that from other aspects, like its social, its roadmaps, where is it going? What's its next steps? Even its tokenomics, we got to be real about that. This is not a faith-based system. As a Web3 project, I cannot say, with 100-degree certainty that the tokenomics are not in the community's favor. At the current moment, they are not. So I have to treat it as a Web3. As a Web2, 11 out of 10. As a Web3, unfortunately, with the characteristics that I'm looking for, there are some facts that need to be considered. Okay, so it is what it is, guys. To 8 out of 10 there, I still feel quite convicted on the project and that it should be one of the top gainers within the narrative. And I am considering continuing to deploy more capital within the range. Guys, let's take a look at some of this price action, because I know at the end of the day, we're interested in what's happening with the price. Ultimately, we see that ResearchHub is not really doing much, to be honest, right? Like in the last little while, a ResearchCoin has been kind of consolidating. It's slightly in an uptrend right here on the tail end here on the 4-hour. If we went on the daily, you can kind of see that really nothing has been changing, right? Let's just get some of this old TA that I got going on here. Obviously, I'm not going to put this yellow line here. I don't know what that's doing there, but you get my point. I think that ultimately what we're doing here is consolidating, or we are accumulating, right? That's another thing. We are still respecting the range, top of the range, bottom of the range. Guys, we've been covering this since back here. Okay, just understand that. And I was waiting for the perfect time to deploy. So I started deploying right into this back test, right into this area. And so far, so good. Now, could we come down and hunt this trend line liquidity? It is very possible. And at this point, what I would recommend, obviously not financial advice, is that everybody prepare for always worst case scenarios. We can come down and hunt this liquidity here. You know how many stop losses are down here? You know how many liquidation levels are there? Lots. I can imagine. Look at that beautiful bottom. Lots of wicks, lots of levels, lots of intent. Okay, so that's my concern. Now we keep on coming down, right? What about if we come down, break this trend line, and we hunt this? We could definitely get a reaction and continue to the upside after that liquidity hunt. But there's still more trendline liquidity to be had right around this level. What about if we dead cat bounce it and come down? Could this be another DCA zone from people that got in at this level? It's very possible. These are all possibilities, right? And then, of course, bear market bottoms all the way to the worst case scenarios all the way down here. This is when when I see scenarios like this, especially with trendline liquidity, and you feel that FOMO and you feel that worry that you might miss out, guys, the best thing to do is to DCA. I know it sounds cliche, but it's valid. You know, it's valid. Why? Because you do 30, 30, 40. That's a great, easy way to do it. 30%, 30%, 40%. If the price comes down all the way down here, you're fully deployed. You're able to DCA. Your average entry is right around here, let's say, right in the middle. And then even if we came down to here, recovery, recovery, recovery. I know it will hurt. It's a very daunting, type of thing to even expect to hold through a dip like this. But guys, what you're trying to do is accumulate in preparation for something more big, something more important, which is a change of character. Right now, we've been going sideways for so long that there's no change of character. There's nothing. We have to respect the range until proven otherwise. And what's the proof that I'm looking for? Obviously, is a fat higher low. If we came down here and got a higher low and came back up, guys, that's a beautiful confirmation, low, higher low. And obviously, what would also get me super interested and super, give me that signal is a confirmed higher high. Even above here would be good. Close a daily candle, consolidate, but not break down. Make it a sustainable move, and then continue to the upside, breaking above here. Obviously, but then by that time, you're buying into the breakout zone. It's too late, right? It's kind of late to be buying into a breakout. You're taking lots of risk. So based on risk, are you going to be buying once the price gets here, buying at local tops or almost previous highs in price discovery, or buying here at local tops? That's dangerous because we can get rejected again and come back down. Who's to say that can happen? Happened before. It could keep on happening. Right? So we got to understand that risk to reward ratio has to be in your favor. And unfortunately, at this current level, you're at 50-50. You're pretty much in the middle of the range, right? Which means that it could go up or it could go down. And what do you do here in this case? Do you think that your edge is there? You're at almost like at a fair value. So what I would say here is, have a bit of exposure on spot. But if it comes down to hunt that trend line liquidity, guys, DCA into this level. Let's take a look at some of these momentum indicators. You can see that the momentum's still in a downtrend, which kind of bothers me. And this is market-wide, guys. We got a confirmation here that we're in a divergence, class A. Let me just quickly get this going so that we can see all of this chart. Higher highs on the price action, lower highs on the momentum. All we are waiting for is follow through here to get oversold, and this thing's going to roll over. Okay, let's just be real. This is the truth about trading. Although this is an uptrend, it looks beautiful. This currently is a retracement, right? Impulsive move, retracement, ABC. If we do come down and we do a swing failure and produce a higher low and fail the swing where we do not make a lower low and break below here, a break of structure, and we make a nice higher low as a failure, guys, I'm in. This is amazing. Right? This is what we want. A nice recovery, a rounded bottom, nice passive accumulation here, break of the highs, and then bang, 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 we start moving higher, higher, higher. But in the meantime, the risk we're taking going in long right now and getting super aggressive is that we see momentum get oversold. Does it have to? No, it does not. I'll be real. Doesn't have to. This is a game of probability, guys. Ethereum tomorrow could wake up and start cranking and carry all these altcoins to price discovery in a couple of days. This is how this space works. I'm not trying to make you FOMO here. I'm trying to make it real. If you look at previous cycle price action and you look at what alt seasons bring, they bring crazy, crazy volatility, crazy price action. So instead of worrying about catching an absolute bottom, I would worry about having a bit of exposure just in case. You're bullish on the narrative fundamentally, hopefully, and if not, then don't buy and look for something else. You have to have that conviction. But ultimately, from a price action perspective, you're buying a 50-50 zone. You're not buying from a position of strength. From a structural perspective, let me just show you what I mean again, because I already said it. You're buying right in the middle between support and resistance. Right? this is resistance still until proven otherwise. Okay, so right now, resistance is here, support is here, you're smack in the middle. You got a 50-50 shot. It's a coin toss. It's very tough. So try your best to average in where you can improve your average entry here at the bottom of the range. All right, guys. Guys, this is all I got for you today. If I've offered you any value in this video, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. If it does really help, if it helps out, you know, with the algorithm and all that good stuff, do your thing. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description. Better yet, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Take care, guys. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip. Thank you.